Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen.
Welcome to this week's Big Questions. This week's big question is, what is a song that you hear and it takes you back to a time or a place that has a memory attached to it? So I'm going to begin with, I'm actually going to talk about two songs because they're related, because they're written by the same person. The first song I'm going to talk about is a song called Stuck in the Middle with You by Stealers Wheel. And Stealers Wheel, the guy who wrote the song, is Gerry Rafferty. And that song, when I hear it, it takes me back to 1973, which is the year I lived in England, 1972, 73. And I remember watching Top of the Pops and seeing Stealers Wheel perform the song. I guess mime the song. By then, I think they weren't allowing bands to really play live on Top of the Pops. I forget when that stopped. But anyway, for some reason, I remember seeing that episode of Top of the Pops when I was there. I was like 11 years old. And so when I hear that song, I think about that time, that year that I spent living in England, which I have a lot of great memories with. Now, of course, some of you may remember that song was also used in a movie called Reservoir Dogs. That kind of ruined the song for me. That scene is a great scene. It's a terrible, scary scene with Mr. Blonde just cutting the ear off the police officer. Sorry, spoilers. But he's the soundtrack is that song, which I thought, while it's a very effective scene and I guess effective for the movie, kind of ruins the song for me a little bit, but we'll move on from there. And then the other related song I thought of when I was looking at Gerry Rafferty, who had an interesting career, and he kind of shunned the spotlight later on, and he didn't really like fame and fortune. I mean, he liked the fortune probably, but not the fame. He had another big hit, well, actually probably bigger than Stuck in the Middle of You, which was called Baker Street. And when I hear the Baker Street, which I actually really don't like the song at all. Number one, because it features saxophone, which rubs me the wrong way in most rock songs for some reason. Baker Street, the song reminds me of the very early Milkmen days, because when I started playing with the Dead Milkmen, Joe, you lived on Baker Street in Manioc.
Oh, yeah. Well, I lived there too.
For some reason, I associate that song with Manioc and Baker Street and the old Milkman house that we first started rehearsing and playing in. I mean, you and
Dave moved there first, and then he moved.
That's where I met you guys at the Christmas party at the house on Baker Street in Manioc. Okay. So those two songs take me back in time, time and place, two very different times and places, but related by the songwriter Gerry Rafferty. Anyway, that's my answer.
You know, the best thing about the Stuck in the Middle with You and Reservoir Dogs is the lead up with Stephen Wright with K. Billy, the hits of the 70s.
Yes.
Gerry Rafferty was in a band, whoever, it's called Steelers. It just makes it even creepier. And then they add to the fact that scene was filmed after Michael Madsen had, the guy who played the cop, said, "Put me in your trunk and drive me around for a little bit." So he put him in the trunk and drove him around for like 3 hours, and the guy was sounding. And then they're all set up to film, and Michael Madsen just pours in. So I love that scene so much. That made me actually really love that song again. He gets little flashes to here.
I thought it was an acid fun.
Yeah, and I did too. I'll never smoke that stuff again. This happened the other week.
That's a great soundtrack. The whole Reservoir Dogs soundtrack is.
It is a great, yeah. It's just a good, wholesome movie that I just wish more young people would see.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Tarantino has his foot fetish, but I'm getting off track. Sorry. So I misread the email, and I thought it said, "What thong takes you back?" And I'm like, "Ooh, this is weird." Okay, so all right, serious face. The song that takes me back it's one of those, again, it's another one of those dark underground bands that I've heard of and nobody else has, and they're called The Cars, and they're very They're very sort of edgy, and I don't know if you guys would be into them or not. Not a lot of people have heard of them. And the song is called Good Times Roll. And the Pet Shop Boys, who say a lot of brilliant stuff, once said that they were talking about music, and somebody says how music should be timeless. And they're like, no, good music fixes you in an exact time and space, when it's either the first time you heard it or sometime when it was significant. And I thought that was right, because I knew like older people, and like they knew where they were when they first heard like Sinatra do My Way. They knew, you know, so I think let's give it up for the Pet Shop Boys on tour next year. But for me, the song, which is Good Times Rolls, actually takes me back to the spring of 1979. I'm with my friend Mark Smith and his brother Tim Smith. So this would make me about 16, maybe 17 years old at this point. And we are walking, and it's a total Proustian moment where I can smell and hear everything. We were walking into the Space Invaders parlor at the downtown farmers market. Now, you young people watching this may not know this, but Space Invaders, video arcades at first were just Space Invaders, and you sat down and played. They took out, there used to be like pachinko parlors and bingo parlors, and they disappeared overnight. And these places where you could just play Space Invaders. And I remember the first one that we walked into, and the reason I remember the song so well is because the sound of Space Invaders, early on, the sound of video arcades just drove people crazy. So they would turn down the sound on the machines and play rock and roll. So we were walking in, and this song, and it just, again, it totally triggers that memory where I'm right there, and I'm, you know, in that moment. And it's weird, if I listen to that song again, that song in my head is a little different when I listen to it. When I listen to it, it seems a little bit slower. It doesn't seem as punchy, and the production seems a little more like Foreigner. So I think that the Cars, instead of having Roy Thomas Baker produce it, should have gotten, I guess I would have been 15 at the time, should have gotten 15-year-old Rodney Anonymous in there to produce that song. But it is also the only, and it has the distinction of being the only Cars song that doesn't make me think of Phoebe Cates. Every other Cars song makes me think of Phoebe Cates in a special way. So yeah, that is my, that's what does it for me. It's the Cars with Let Good Times Roll. It's, like I say, it's weird. We think of them, I tend to think of them as a new wave band. A lot of people think of them as a new wave band, but if you listen to the production on that first record, it seems like they were trying to almost to go like more of a, like the sort of rock that people were used to in, you know, 1978, 1979. I think the record came out in early 79, and this happened to me. I remember it's fairly warm, so I'm going to guess I'm either pulling up on 17 or just turned 17.
There are a lot of songs that fix me into times past, places past, but there are two in particular that are very strong. One is Eddie Money's Take Me Home Tonight. And that reminds me of being on tour with the Dead Milkmen on the Eat Your Paisley tour in our blue hospital ambulance van. Because it seems like we were hearing that song on every radio station for the tour. I don't know, for that particular one. And I guess a few years ago, I started hearing it again for some reason. I don't know what, or was it that Eddie Money passed away or something? Maybe that was why. And then it just took me right back to being in the hospital ambulance van, going from town to town. But the song I really want to talk about takes me back to when I was 12. It's a song by the band 10cc, first song I ever heard by them, and it's called I'm Not in Love. And it's a very strange song. I've never heard a song quite like it before or since. It reminds me of listening to my transistor radio at night, falling asleep. It was a summer between 7th and 8th grade. A very great summer for me, by the way. So it's good memories. I don't know, but it's constructed mostly of vocals. So you hear it's very eerie sounding, and the lyrics are very strange. And the lyrics struck me you know, upon listening to it, like this guy's saying he's not in love, but it sounds like he really is. And does he realize it or not? I don't know. And then there's this one point in the song where it goes, big boy, woman whispers, big boys don't cry. And
That's the secretary at the recording studio.
wow, interesting tidbit. Yeah, whenever I would maybe start to cry when I was a kid at that age, I would think of that. I said, cry, you better not cry. But I'm not in love. It's a very pretty song and melancholy. And yeah, I only recently learned that those are tape loops also. All those vocals were recorded before the song was recorded. It was written, but it was recorded because someone in the band had the idea to do that, to make it really weird. So they recorded every note chromatically, and then they played them on the mixer. So they had 12 tape loops running simultaneously, and the mixer would bring up whatever notes, so they would make chords out of them.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, that takes me back to age 12.
My friend Rob from Live Not in Evil and I got fascinated with that song a while back because we did it live, and we were both blown away. There's a whole video on the making of it, and we were just blown away by how they had long before sort of samplers or anything had said, let's just have everybody come in and sing a note, and then we'll use the notes as chords. And so they would have a bunch of guys just sitting there basically playing the board. So they used the studio as an instrument. And then that Big Boys Don't Cry thing, they said that the woman who was the secretary, they were like, but you want to come in and do something? And they had her like whisper that, and it's perfect person for it. All the stars aligned for that song.
Yeah. It's really like their only big hit, I guess. That great song called Silly Love too.
And don't forget Dreadlock Holiday. Don't like Jamaica? Oh no, I love it. Man, that song, Don't You Walk Through My World. Man, that song really gets me rocking. Let me tell you right now. I don't have enough skin left to close my eyes right now.
I wonder what the band name means. 10cc?
Yeah, 10cc. Where would that come from?
Yeah, I'm
what
not
could
sure.
that possibly mean? Could that be an average of something? I don't know.
I know it's a measurement of something.
A measurement, I don't know. On average, yeah.
In it. So this is one of my favorite questions and for this series, and I've been thinking about it a lot, and so many have popped up, and I realize that I do this constantly. I hear a song and I can be like, oh, the last time I heard that I was driving through this or whatever. So this was fun. It was hard to narrow it down, but I picked like my earliest memory and a song that I still hear fairly often. Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. I was probably, I don't know what year that came out, but I'm guessing I was 3 or 4 and going out for Halloween. And I remember hearing it and I just loved it. And it's funny, I didn't really think about it until much later in life that like the bass line probably is what grabbed me. Because I've always kind of felt this natural like leaning toward bass and never really knew it, especially as a kid. But anything that makes me like bop my head or whatever, I'm like, all right. Yeah, I remember it being Halloween too. So there's that. And one that was pretty profound was the first time I heard Watching Scotty Die. I guess my summer between 7th and 8th grade too. And I was up at our vacation spot up in Canada, and my cousins were there, and my cousin Woods was like singing this song, and I was like, what are you singing? He was like, oh, it's a Dead Milkman. And I was like, what's the song though? And he played it for me, and I was like, I've never heard anything like this in my life. Like,
and I hope to never hear anything like it again.
Funny, but it's disturbing too. I was like, is the guy singing British? I don't understand. Because we had also been listening to The Cure. So like, Joe, I thought you were kind of British. But then what's funny is listening to the rest of the album, I was like, oh, wow, it's not anything like that song. But that was the kind of thing where we ended up just playing albums all night, you know, like falling asleep to it. But no matter how many times I've heard that song and performed it with you guys, I still think about that. It still brings me back to our cabin up there and like just being in that room and being like, what is this? Yeah, I had a whole bunch of other songs. I wrote down some other ones, but I'll spare you guys that.
Yeah, I had a list of like 30. I mean, yeah.
Yes.
I will tell you another one real quick, because Dean mentioned Stuck in the Middle with You, and then we talked about Reservoir Dogs. Another one I had on my list was Hooked on a Feeling.
Oonga
That Ooga Chaka, Ooga. I was with some friends in my car, and I hadn't had my license for that long, and it was raining, and I was going around a turn, and we were like, Ooga Chaka, and I smashed into the wall. Always comes up when I hear that song. I always picture the smash. Yeah, and of course in my memory it's like timed perfectly with like where the next part starts, but I don't think it was.
We covered that song live.
Yeah, I used to have a sample of it. Yeah, on the loop. The Oonga Chakas, yeah.
One of the last tours we did, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, after that, nobody will book us. Kind of weird.
I figured you only played that because it was your last tour. Like, that's been what I'm feeling.
Yeah, we own the rights to the Oonga Chakas. And we thought, well, might as well use that.
Okay, now we come to recommendations. Mine is kind of spur of the moment because I just woke up from a nap. I'm going to recommend naps. I probably recommend this before, but naps are good. They rejuvenate you. They give you a little refreshing rest, and naps are good for your health. And I highly recommend taking a nap if you can. I know some people think, oh, I can't take a nap. Short naps are okay. If you take a super long nap when you wake up, sometimes it's not so good, but a nice, maybe, half hour, an hour max nap, those are good. Take naps.
I agree. 20 minutes is my sweet spot. I actually, for a while, I had it where I could wake up after 20 minutes. It was pretty good.
I slept once. I hear it's amazing. I don't remember much about it. It was a long time ago. I remember sleeping at one point.
But Mitch Hedberg said, I haven't slept for 48 hours because that's a long time. Think about it.
Yes, we get it. Do I go now, or Dean, you have any more?
No, that's it for me.
Okay,
That's fine.
I got two, so I get the power on. First one is my first gold star 110% recommendation. It is for the new album by Devours, and it is called Escape from Planet Devours. And I'd heard Devours. I wasn't that familiar with his music. I heard it being interviewed on We Had to Have a Technical. Young people, musicians, practice your interviews. Because if people hear you giving a good interview, they're going to want to check out your music. And I heard this. I always do when I hear a good interview. I check out the music. I was super happy with this. The best way I can describe it is it sounds a lot like Joe's lyrics from his solo stuff combined with synth punk. Devours basically said he'd grown up listening to punk, and he was basically doing a guitar band without guitars. So it's that sort of sad but witty sort of stuff. I think if he played a double bill with Joe, it'd be something to see. It's the two of them just kind of remind me of each other. It's really, really good, and it's excellent synth punk, and I recommend it. It's a gold star recommendation. Please give this a listen. The second recommendation that I have is for a documentary. This is like an 80% recommendation. The documentary is called Hex Hollow, Witchcraft and Murder in Pennsylvania. It came out in 2015. Vienna, my wife and I were recently at a outdoor flea market. You have to go outdoors now. And she bought a small picture, and the woman told her it was the Hex Hollow house. And she was all excited. She's like, it's the Hex Hollow house. And she's like, what's the Hex Hollow house? I'm like, oh, that's where the Hex Hollow witch murder took place in Pennsylvania. It actually took place in 1928. So there was a witch murder in 1928. There was a powwow man killed another powwow man. Powwow man is a very weird Lancaster folk magic sort of folk medicine thing. But so if you think this is weird, this happened in 1928. My father, which I reminded my wife about, my father was actually treated by a powwow man. My father was a kid in the beginning of World War II. They would blare air raid sirens to test them, and my dad knew what that meant and would get nosebleeds. So my grandparents set for the powwow man. So I think I'm probably like the first person in my family in like 6 generations not to be treated by a powwow man, but I plan to fix that. So yeah, if you want to learn about powwow men and weird murders and stuff like that, again, it's called Hex Hollow, Witchcraft and Murder in Pennsylvania. Came out in 2015. I think you have to buy it off like Amazon Prime, but it's only like $2 or $3. It's not fantastic, but it is very, very interesting.
Cool. I'd like to recommend an album called Switched on Larry by the Semi-Modulars. And it's all synthesizer music. It's all instrumental. It sounds kind of like 8-bit, what do you call it, video game soundtrack sort of stuff.
Like Space Invaders.
Huh? Also, I like to listen to it in my car. It makes car driving fun. But it's the Semi-Modulars are a band that consists of students of the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Austin, Texas. And the members, this is their third album, I found out. The members change, I guess, based on how the classes change, but I have it didn't come with any information. In fact, it tells you who the members are, but not their last names, just initials. But I recommend it. It's a Bronze Star recommendation.
A Bronze Star.
Bronze Star. Not quite silver, but yeah.
They have it on that Bandcamp thing. I don't think they ask for any money. It's like name your price thing. So you can get it for nothing. Just listen to it. Download it.
Cool.
I'm so glad nobody went with the songs they lost their virginity to. I am so happy. That thought just popped in my head. I'm like, I don't ever want to know. Plus, I haven't lost mine yet, so I'm really hoping it'll be something catchy.
Hooked on a Feeling.
Hooked on a Feeling, or like some super short song. Like, oh God, I'm going to hell. All right.
I don't have much to recommend. I just it just kind of hit me right before we met. Yeah, if you have the means, foster someone or something, an animal or a child, donate either, I was going to say clothes, but apparently there's a problem with clothes donations. Like sometimes they're too much. So donate food, like canned goods and stuff, or volunteer your time. I know you're busy. I am too. And maybe I'm just getting on a high horse because my parents asked my family if we would help do a thing in Kensington. It's called Cast Your Cares. It's where you give out food to people who need food. And yeah, there's like a religious affiliation, but we're giving food to people. So, it's about giving people food. They're not like preaching to them, but yeah, we'll put like a link to that. It's happening this Saturday. So if you're watching this and you're not doing anything, go to Kensington and give food to people. And I'll be there. And I'll sign your head and kiss your baby.
I'll sign your baby and kiss your head.
I'll sign your head and kiss it. Good luck in Louis.
Yes.
I'm not actually consenting to the meeting.
No one has ever consented to this meeting ever.
And why are we doing it?
I don't know. It's just you get into a habit. It's like knocking over those old parking meter things and taking the change out. It's just a habit that you get into. Hard to break. I couldn't break it till they put in the kiosks.